The sedan is dead. That's what everyone keeps saying, and it's the best thing that ever happened to smart buyers. While the crowd overpays for tiny crossovers, these 11 American sedans are out there with full-size comfort, bulletproof drivetrains, and price tags that feel like 2015. I'll walk you through the right model years, the engines to chase, the trims worth the extra money, and the headaches to avoid. Stick around for number 1. It's the sedan mechanic still trusted after 200,000 miles. Why American sedans are cheap. Right now, sedans lost the popularity contest, and that is great for buyers who still care about money. Everybody wants a taller seat, a fake adventure look, or a crossover badge. So even solid American sedans now sell for less than many tired small SUVs. But cheap does not automatically mean smart. The right sedan has a proven engine, a normal automatic, common parts, and an ownership story that sounds boring in the best way. The wrong sedan has a turbo nobody serviced, rental miles that were driven hard, luxury options that aged badly, or a seller who thinks fresh tire shine replaces records. We are not buying badges here. We are buying drivetrains, receipts, cold start behavior, shift quality, and repair math. If the car is plain, clean, and maintained, that can be a win. If it is shiny but vague, that is where the cheaper price turns expensive. Number 11. Buick Verano 2.4. The compact Buick nobody brags about can be a smart, cheap daily because nobody is fighting you for one. The years I like are 2014 through 2017, especially base, convenience, or leather trim, with the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder and 6-speed automatic. Skip the turbo premium unless the service history is unusually strong, because the whole value play here is calm ownership, not chasing speed. The Verano is cheap because the Buick badge feels old, the styling is quiet, and the size is too small for buyers who think every used car needs crossover room. That is exactly why it works. You get a comfortable cabin, decent sound control, simple commuting manners, and GM, compact hardware without the hype tax. Current pricing usually falls around $5,500 to $11,000, depending on miles, trim, and condition. A clean 2016 in the low $7,000 range can make real sense if the records are there. Weak points are not mysterious. Timing chain noise can show up if oil changes are ignored. Electrical accessories can get annoying. Suspension wear and oil seepage are common old car checks. The inspection is simple. Start it cold and listen for a rattle. Check oil change records, not just the sticker in the windshield. Test every window, lock, screen, blower speed, and seat function. On the drive, feel for straight tracking and smooth shifts after it warms up. If it smells like burnt oil or the owner says it just needs a sensor, slow down. This is not a dream car. That is the point. It is a cheaper, quieter daily for someone who wants honest transportation, not parking lot attention. The next sedan is even more common, and that is why parts stay cheap. Subscribe for year-specific sedan advice that finds real value, not cheap cars dressed up with tire shine and polished dealer stories. Number 10. Chevrolet Malibu 2.5. This Malibu looks like rental counter wallpaper, and that is why the discount is real. The best years are 2014 and 2015, usually LS or LT trim, with the 2.5-liter 4-cylinder and 6-speed automatic. It is not exciting, and nobody is pretending it is. But a boring Malibu with records can be a cheaper daily than many worn-out imports people overpay for. Buyers skip it because of fleet history, plain styling, and zero enthusiast appeal. That lack of hype is where the discount comes from. Those things lower the price. Current money usually lands around $6,500 to $10,500, with private party values often even softer depending on miles and condition. Why is it good? It is roomy enough, quiet enough, parts are easy to source, and the highway ride is more stable than people expect from something this anonymous. The weak points are practical. Stop-start battery problems can make the car act strangely. Cam actuator noise or startup rattle can point to maintenance neglect. Suspension wear can make it feel loose. Old transmission fluid can make shift quality worse. Your checklist should be quick but firm. Check battery age and make sure the start-stop system behaves normally. Listen on a cold start for rattle. Drive it fully warm and feel every shift. Test the air conditioning, steering wheel controls, radio, and trunk release, because fleet-style cars sometimes get used hard. I would rather buy a plain LT with records than a prettier car with mystery ownership. This is not a sedan for people who need attention. It is for someone who wants a normal car that does the commute, handles interstate miles, and does not punish every repair. If the tires match, the fluids look clean, and the shifts stay smooth, the Malibu can be a solid, cheap American buy. The next sedan is one of the better Ford values if you avoid the wrong engine. Number 9. Ford Fusion 2.5. The Fusion is not thrilling, but the right 4-cylinder version is exactly what cheap sedan buyers should notice. I want 2010 through 2012 S, SE, or SEL trims with the 2.5-liter 4-cylinder and 6-speed automatic. This is the older Fusion before the later EcoBoost years stole the attention and added more complexity. The 2.5 is the story. It avoids small turbo heat, gives decent fuel economy, and stays predictable for normal driving. Buyers ignore these because the styling is older, supply is huge, and newer Fusions look more modern. That keeps pricing low. A decent one can land around $3,500 to $8,000, with many private party examples sitting even lower if miles are high. The good ones are not fancy, but they are honest. Parts are common, shops know them, and the cabin is comfortable enough for real commuting. Weak points? Some cars have power steering issues, front suspension wear, rocker rust, and transmission fluid neglect. Your checklist needs to be focused. Test steering assist in a parking lot and make sure it feels consistent. Inspect rockers, door bottoms, and rear wheel areas for rust. Drive it until warm and feel for harsh shifts, flares, or hesitation. Also, listen over rough pavement for clunks, because worn links and struts are useful negotiation points. If the seller says it has always shifted like that, do not accept that as the truth. A healthy Fusion should feel smooth, steady, and boring. That is what we want. Compared with a same-money Accord or Camry, the Fusion may have less badge strength, but that is why the deal exists. You are buying a useful sedan the crowd forgot, not a status symbol. The next sedan is bigger, rear-wheel drive, and cheaper than people expect because it wears a Chrysler badge. Number 8. Chrysler 300 3.6. The cheap American luxury play works best when you skip the ego trims and buy the calm version. The target is a 2015 to 2017 Chrysler 300 Limited, or touring with the 3.6-liter Pentastar 5, 6, and 8-speed automatic. That combination gives you a big rear-wheel drive sedan, a roomy cabin, and highway comfort without jumping straight into Hemi fuel bills or modified car drama. Buyers avoid these because Chrysler's reputation scares them. Big sedans depreciate hard, and old luxury features make people nervous. Fair enough. But the right one can be a lot of car for $7,000 to $16,000, depending on mileage, trim, and condition. The reason it works is the feel. It rides plush, looks substantial, and the 8-speed automatic helps the V6 feel much more refined than older Chrysler sedans. Avoid abused Hemi cars, rough, all-wheel drive examples with mismatched tires, and anything with loud wheels, cheap tint, or accident history. Weak points are front suspension noise, electrical accessories, oil cooler leaks on Pentastar engines, and interior wear from careless owners. Your checklist should start under the hood. Inspect the oil cooler area for seepage or coolant smell. Test every power feature, screen, climate mode, window, and seat control. Then, drive over broken pavement and listen for front-end clunks. On the highway, make sure the transmission feels smooth and does not hunt or bump. A clean 300 can feel more expensive than it is, but a neglected one becomes a headache with leather seats. By the owner, not the grille. If the records are thin and the tires are mismatched, the big body charm does not matter. The next sedan is a Ford nobody thinks is cool, which makes it useful for buyers who actually want space. Number 7. Ford Taurus 3.5. Big, heavy, and almost invisible, the Taurus is exactly the kind of sedan that becomes a value buy when everybody else wants a crossover. The years I like are 2014 through 2018 SE, SEL, or Limited with the naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6 and the 6-speed automatic. Avoid the SHO if the mission is cheaper, low-drama ownership, because the twin-turbo fun changes the repair story fast. The normal Taurus is cheap because it looks mature, drinks more fuel than a compact, carries a police and fleet image, and feels old school beside newer sedans. Good, that keeps prices in the real-world lane, usually around $6,500 to $15,000, depending on trim, miles, and condition. A clean SE can sit low, while SEL and Limited cars climb when the miles are kinder. Why is it good? It gives you a quiet ride, a huge trunk, broad seats, strong part support, and simple V6 power when you skip the turbo. Mechanics do not love it because it is exciting. They like it because the layout is familiar and the problems are known. The weak points are important though. The Transverse 3.5 has an internal water pump labor risk, so coolant history matters. AWD cars can suffer PTU neglect, especially if nobody has serviced the fluid. Suspension wear is also common because this sedan is heavy. Check coolant level and history. Inspect AWD service records if equipped, and listen for front-end noise over rough pavement. If you smell coolant, see overheating history, or hear clunks that the seller downplays, use that as leverage or walk. I also like checking the trunk floor, rear tires, and brake wear, because heavy sedans hide hard miles. A Taurus with boring records and clean coolant is a far better buy than a shiny one with vague service talk. Next car gives muscle sedan looks, but the smartest buy is not the loudest one. Number 6. Dodge Charger 3.6. Muscle car styling tricks people into chasing V8 Chargers, but the smart money is often the quieter V6. The years I like are 2015 through 2018, SE or SXT, with the 3.6-liter Pentastar Bi-6 and the 8-speed automatic. Every 2015 Charger moved to the 8-speed, and that gearbox helps the V6 feel smooth, responsive, and easier to live with than older big sedans. These cars are cheap because of police image, fleet history, high supply, and the assumption that every Charger was beaten like a rental at midnight. Some were, so do not buy blindly. Used pricing usually runs around $8,000 to $17,000, with cleaner SXT cars asking more and rough X-Fleet cars sitting lower. The V6 Charger is good because it gives you full-size space, rear-wheel drive feel, decent power, and cheaper ownership than Hemi trims. It still looks tough without needing premium fuel bills or modified owner problems. Avoid ex-police cars unless the price is low enough to cover wear. Avoid modified V8 cars if your goal is simple ownership. Avoid any Charger with sketchy tires, accident history, or mismatched body panels. Weak points are front-end wear, Pentastar oil cooler leaks, electrical gremlins, and abuse-related transmission wear. Check ownership history, inspect tire wear across all four corners, and test hard braking plus steering feel. A healthy Charger should feel stable, not loose, wandering, or nervous. Also, check the oil cooler area for seepage and run every screen, window, and climate function. This is a car where the wrong previous owner matters more than the badge. Buy the clean adult-owned V6, not the loudest one on the lot. One more thing, skip cars with cheap lowering springs or loud exhaust, because those usually tell you the owner cared more about image than maintenance. The next sedan is the comfortable Chevy that people forgot because big sedans stopped being fashionable. If trim-level advice saves you money, subscribe. The right engine matters more than trunk badges, shiny wheels, or dealership promises. Number 5. Chevrolet Impala 3.6. The full-size Impala is the Chevy sedan people forgot, and that makes it one of the better cheap comfort plays. The years I like are 2014 through 2019, LT or Premier, with a 3.6-liter V6 and the 6-speed automatic. This is not the old Impala Limited fleet body. This is the newer full-size car with a nicer cabin, better road manners, and real highway comfort. Buyers skip it because sedans collapsed, Chevy carries a rental lot image, and everyone wants a crossover that costs more and rides worse. That is where the opening is. Used prices usually land around $9,000 to $17,000, with many clean LT examples sitting in the low teens. The V6 gives strong power. The trunk is huge, the seats are comfortable, and the car settles down nicely at 70 miles per hour. Mechanics like it because the powertrain is familiar and parts are easy, but they still check the basics. Weak points include direct injection carbon buildup over time, suspension wear, infotainment issues, and neglected transmission fluid. To watch a rough idle, stumble on cold start, screen glitches, clunks over bumps, and vibration at highway speed. Check idle smoothness, test the touchscreen and climate controls, and drive at highway speed long enough to feel tire balance, bearings, and suspension. I would also inspect service records for transmission fluid, because big sedans get used for highway miles, and people forget the fluid still ages. Do not overpay for a car with bald tires, weak struts, and warning lights just because the cabin feels nice. That is not a value. Value is a clean Impala that rides silent, shifts smooth, and has records. Next, Buick takes the same comfort idea and makes it even quieter. Number 4. Buick Lacrosse 3.6. The Lacrosse looks like a retirement sedan until you spend time in one and realize how much quiet comfort it gives for the money. The years I like are 2014 through 2016 Leather Group or Premium, with the 3.6-liter V6 and the 6-speed automatic. Skip the 2.4 e-assist if the goal is simple ownership and smooth power, because the V6 matches the mission better. This Buick is cheap because of image, big sedan depreciation, and crossover pressure. People see the badge and think old. I see a roomy sedan with a plush ride, strong V6, good sound control, and a luxury feel without German car repair drama. Used prices usually sit around $8,000 to $16,000, though extra clean cars can ask more, and rough ones fall lower. The Lacrosse is good for commuters, retirees, road trip drivers, and anyone who wants a calm cabin instead of fake sport. Mechanics like the familiarity of the GMV 6 and 6-speed, but oil change history still matters. Weak points include timing chain risk if oil changes were ignored, struts, wheel bearings, electronics, and general age-related seepage. Cold start for rattle, check tire wear, and test every power seat, screen function, climate mode, and window. On the road, listen for bearing hum, feel for suspension float, and make sure the transmission stays steady when warm. I would rather buy a plain, clean Leather Group car with records than a loaded car full of dead options. Fancy features are only good when they work. Assorted Lacrosse feels silent, stable, and more expensive than its price tag. For highway buyers, this is where the car shines, because long miles feel calmer when the seat, steering, and cabin noise all work together. That matters on long, tiring highway days. That is the whole trick. The next sedan is older, cheaper, and powered by one of GM's most trusted V6 engines. Number 3. Buick Lucerne, 3.8 and 3.9. The Lucerne is the sedan younger buyers laugh at, while smart buyers enjoy quiet, comfortable miles for cheap money. The best target is a 2006 to 2008 CXL with a 3.8-liter V6 if you want the classic Buick engine story, or a 2009 to 2011 CXL with the 3.9-liter V6 if records are clean. The Northstar V8. Super trim sounds tempting, but skip it if low-cost ownership is the mission. This car is cheap because it has an old person image, soft styling, and no sporty attitude at all. That is also why it works. You get broad seats, a relaxed ride, cheap parts, and simple highway manners. Current values often sit around $3,500 to $8,000, with a clean 2011 CXL often landing around the mid-$5,000 lane, depending on condition. Weak points are coolant leaks, worn mounts, intake or gasket seepage, tired suspension, and electrical accessories. Check coolant level and smell, test every HVAC mode, and drive over rough pavement for clunks. I also want to see stable temperature, clean oil, and a transmission that shifts smooth when warm. If the owner says the coolant light just comes and goes, treat that as a warning. Lucerne is not exciting, but excitement is not what we are buying here. We are buying low-stress miles, simple repair math, and a sedan that feels better on a long highway run than most cheap compact crossovers. One more shop note. Look at the tires and brake pedal too. A car that is driven gently usually has matching rubber, even wear, and a pedal that feels firm. A car with cheap, mismatched tires and a spongy pedal tells you the owner was fixing only what broke. Next, Pontiac is forgotten because the brand died, but the engine is still worth knowing. Number 2. Pontiac Grand Prix 3.8. The dead brand Pontiac Grand Prix can still make sense because the 3.8-liter V6 never cared about fashion. The best versions are 2006 to 2008 base sedans with the Series 3 3.8 V6 and 4-speed automatic. Avoid the GXP V8 if the goal is cheaper long-term ownership, because extra power brings extra risk, front-end stress, and a value case that gets weaker fast. The Grand Prix is cheap because Pontiac is gone. The styling is dated, interiors wear hard, and plenty of these cars were driven like disposable beaters. That is exactly why you inspect carefully, instead of falling in love with the price. The good part is the drivetrain. The 3.8 is simple, familiar, and backed by cheap parts. It gives decent space, strong highway durability, and enough power for normal driving, without making every repair feel special order. Prices usually run around $2,500 to $7,000 depending on miles and condition. Weak points are intake, gasket seepage, transmission wear, wheel bearings, tired interiors, and coolant or oil mixing signs on neglected cars. Inspect coolant and oil condition, feel every shift when fully warm, and listen for bearing hum at speed. Also, check rocker rust, brake lines, and power windows, because cheap cars still need basics. If the transmission bangs or slips, do not talk yourself into it because the engine sounds healthy. A strong engine with a dying transmission is still a bad deal. The smart buy is the plain V6 sedan with receipts, clean fluids, and no boy racer nonsense. For a Grand Prix, ownership history matters more than trim. I would rather buy a faded base car from an older owner than a shiny one with smoked lights, loud exhaust, and no receipts. These cars are cheap enough that bad owners stop maintaining them. Then blame the brand when the car complains. Number 1 is the full-size American sedan mechanics still trust because it was built like a tool, not a trend. Number 1. Mercury Grand Marquis. The Grand Marquis is the American sedan nobody cool wants, and that is exactly why mechanics still respect it. The best years are 2006 through 2011 LS models, with the 4.6-liter V8 and 4-speed automatic. It is rear-wheel drive, body-on-frame, huge inside, and built on the Panther platform that also served Crown Victorias and town cars for years. The Mercury badge is dead. The styling screams grandpa, and fuel economy is not modern, so image buyers walk away. Good. That leaves practical buyers with a simple V8, cheap parts, a giant trunk, 6-passenger seating, and repair knowledge every old-school shop understands. Prices usually run around $4,500 to $10,000, with clean, low-mile examples asking more because people finally realize what these are. It earns the number 1 because it best proves the title. It is cheap because shoppers ignore the image, not because the basic drivetrain is weak. Weak points are intake manifold coolant leaks, air suspension on some examples, worn front suspension, rust, and neglected fluids. Smell for coolant, inspect frame and brake lines, and drive over bumps for loose steering or clunks. I also want a smooth, idle, dry transmission, working heat, and tires that wear evenly. The 4.6 is not a race engine, but it is reliable when serviced and not overheated. The transmission is old-fashioned, but that is part of the charm. It shifts simply, parts are available, and nobody needs a laptop ritual to understand it. This is a sedan for people who value room, comfort, and predictable ownership over image. The market laughs at it until they need a cheap car that keeps starting. The best Grand Marquis examples feel boring immediately. That is a compliment. No warning lights, no steering wander, no coolant smell, no rear-end howl, and no cheap modifications. If the seller is proud of service records instead of chrome wheels, you are talking to the right person. That is why it finishes first. It is not trendy. It is not stylish. It is honest transportation. And honest transportation is getting harder to find. Subscribe if you want cheap car picks based on engines, records, and repair math, not recycled favorites or shiny internet guesses. Buyer cheat sheet. The best cheap American sedans usually share the same traits: naturally aspirated engines, normal automatics, common parts, boring trims, and owners who kept receipts. The risky ones usually have turbo neglect, police abuse, rental wear, missing oil history, coolant leaks, or sellers who say they all do that. Do not chase the nicest wheels or the biggest engine. Chase the quietest cold start, cleanest records, smoothest shifts, driest underbody, and least modified example. If the car feels loose, hot, rusty, or vague, keep moving. Also, remember that cheap does not mean disposable. A $3,000 sedan still needs fluids, tires, brakes, and suspension parts. Budget for catch-up work before you buy, because an honest old sedan becomes a great deal only when the first month does not surprise you. A cheap sedan should lower stress, not create a repair calendar. Click the next video now because I am showing the American sedans that look cheap but become repair traps. Like the video, subscribe, and buy smarter.